Hello, everyone. I'm Tanya Rivero. Welcome back to CBSN. As the U.S. seemingly gets a handle on the coronavirus, many are debating where the global pandemic originated. Some experts believe it came from here, the Wuhan Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China. Beijing has repeatedly denied the lab was responsible, claiming the U.S. and other countries are trying to distract the world from their own failures to contain the virus. Other experts claim the disease came from an animal host, like a bat. President Biden has recently ordered a full-scale review of intelligence about where the virus may have emerged. The World Health Organization is also investigating. Meantime, Dr. Anthony Fauci has received backlash recently. According to emails first obtained by BuzzFeed News, Fauci was apparently warned early on into the pandemic that some of the features of the virus may have looked engineered. Former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb defended Dr. Fauci on Face the Nation Sunday.
I didn't think there was anything remarkable in those emails. I certainly don't think there was anything that Tony sent that expressed any ill intent, and nothing really that was new. All of the genetic diversity that's seen in the virus could have been derived from nature. There are some unusual features, don't get me wrong, but they are still things that we could have found in nature. So their initial analysis was based on the analysis of the sequence. Their current analysis is also based on an analysis of the sequence. And what is lost in this is that there's a broader mosaic here. You know, we have other information now that fits into this picture. The science is one piece of information, but there's a lot of other information that points in a direction that this could have come out of a lab, that we need to have a broader view about the potential risk that this was a lab leak.
For more, let's bring in David Asher. He is a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute. He is also a former advisor at the State Department. In his latest op-ed for the Wall Street Journal, David argues the world needs answers on COVID's origins, and the U.S. should use all of its tools to keep the pressure on Beijing. David, welcome. Great to have you with us. So you argue that whatever you may believe about COVID's origins, getting to the bottom of the case demands American leaders apply new pressure on China. What would you like that pressure to look like? And how do you get an honest answer out of Beijing?
Well, I'd say the first and foremost form of pressure is actually to get to this is an independent bipartisan commission, similar to the 9/11 Commission, that really aims to try to get to the bottom of this. But simultaneous to that, I recommend a number of steps, which includes, of course, beginning with ceasing the funding to the Wuhan Institute and other Chinese programs which have dual use potential to be used for, yes, potentially identifying new strains of viruses, but also for biological warfare potentially. There's just no reason for us to be cooperating with a communist stated adversary. And then, we should go back and enforce our treaties. The Biological Weapons Convention, which is a treaty signed by the Chinese in 1985, needs to be enforced. They violated many clauses of it based on information we declassified in January, that they had a secret military program, which they denied having, that was indeed the one working on COVID-19, and whose researchers were the first researchers that we know to fall sick. And then finally, we need sanctions against the Wuhan Institute and its parent, the National Academy of Sciences of China, which is not just a government entity. It actually has a corporate footprint that's enormous, including here in the United States. And we also need a combination of law enforcement and civil litigation. I sort of believe we need to unleash the ambulance-chasing lawyers if, let's say, 6 months from now, the Chinese haven't come forward with evidence.
And why do you believe it took until May 26th for President Biden to launch a formal investigation into the origins of COVID? And do you think now that he has, we might get somewhere?
Yeah, I actually think we will get somewhere. And I think the president did it because he saw the same grounds that we'd identified, plus I'm assuming much more, many things we were working on at the end of the Trump administration, which I was just a consultant and advisor to. I wasn't an official. Were becoming, there's a lot of data that was emerging that was very disturbing. And I would be surprised if the Biden administration didn't do what they're doing, which is trying to engage in a sprint to get to the bottom of it, because it's a worrisome mix of data classified and unclassified, that points at a lab leak as a highly likely source of this pandemic.
And Vanity Fair is a publication that also conducted a months-long investigation into the potential origins of the virus. The magazine discovered a State Department official wrote a memo charging staff from his bureau were, quote, warned not to pursue an investigation into the origin of COVID-19 because it would, quote, open a can of worms if it continued. David, why would there initially be so much trepidation on behalf of the U.S. government to look into the origins of this virus?
It's one of the most puzzling and disturbing things I ever encountered. That was my Assistant Secretary, Acting Assistant Secretary Thomas DiManano. He can speak for himself, but I'll say I was shocked when people didn't want to look seriously under rocks and warned of a can of worms that we could open or Pandora's box, as if we're doing the same type of research with the same types of potentially offensive designs. I don't see that. I've never seen evidence of it. I've worked extensively in the Department of Defense on many, many highly classified programs. I've never seen a bio-warfare program in my life, and I don't believe one exists in the U.S. We're upholding our treaty commitment, unlike the Chinese, unlike the Russians in North Korea. And so the question is, why wouldn't we be looking very hard at anything that China is doing, knowing that they're doing things in cyber and in the military space with satellites and, space warfare and et cetera? Why wouldn't they do it in biology? Of course they're doing it in biology. And they actually informed the Biological Weapons Convention, which is the thing that governs international compliance with biological weapons security, that they were working on a program of essentially of hybrid weaponization in 2011. They didn't call it weaponization. They said they were developing specific means of defense, but that even could target ethnicities, which I find ridiculous and crazy sounding. Also, one last thing, the French, our allies, built the Wuhan Institute Level 4 lab where the most dangerous research is occurring, and they were kicked out. They were evicted in 2017. And it was sort of completed in 2018. That should have been the biggest warning sign. Anyone in the world, including at the NIH, should have known that their counterpart, the French National Institute of Health, had been thrown out right after they finished building this dangerous facility.
Mm-hmm. So, let's get to the root of why there's so much debate over this in the first place. I mean, hundreds of thousands of Americans are dead because of this virus, not to mention the millions around the world. How does it matter? Tell us why it matters at this point, whether this virus came from a lab leak or from animal to human transmission.
Well, it matters because the future of the world could be determined by how we govern biology. And synthetic biology is one of the things that could help save us. But as a friend of mine who's one of the leaders in that area in science and is a businessman as well, says it's either going to save us all, it's going to kill us all. I mean, I don't want to sound extreme, but what this has done, this COVID-19, wherever it came from, it's shown the power to potential adversaries of what you can do relatively cheaply to design a weapon of mass destruction. And the idea that you ultimately probably could target specific ethnicities, which I don't believe they did in this case, even though the Chinese talked about it, it should be disturbing, disturb the heck out of all of us. And, there is an obvious dual use capability inside mRNA and all the things which have given us vaccines. Those labs are able to cook up a synthetic virus to replicate COVID-19 in a matter of a day or two. It doesn't take them months. And if they can do it, and the technology is proliferating, not just as it has in China, but imagine if Al Qaeda got a hold of it. I mean, this is something that there's no real regulation, there's no export controls on. It's sort of the Wild West of future warfare. Right.
And the fight to learn as much as we can about it continues. Well, David Asher, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your insight.
Thanks you very much.